The humiliation was crystallized not in a scream, but in the clink of champagne and glasses during the toast at my older sister's lavish wedding reception in the grand ballroom of the Biltmore Hotel in Santa Barbara, California, where the setting sun painted the Pacific Ocean in hues of gold and pink outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, and the air was thick with the scent of gardenias and expensive perfume. And my mother, Eleanor, resplendent in a of the bride gown that cost more than my monthly rent, stood tapping her crystal flute with a manicured nail, her voice carrying with practiced ease over the murmur of 200 guests, our entire extended family, my father's business associates, society friends from Newport Beach, and she said, "To my beautiful daughter, the bride, who has always known her worth and chosen a path of real substance." And then her gaze, cold and pinpoint, found me where I sat at the family friends table near the back, and she added, her smile not wavering, "And to my younger daughter, Sophia, who is still finding herself, bless her heart, working at little art gallery downtown, chasing dreams instead of a real future, no ring on her finger, no uniform of purpose on her shoulders, just floating through life in America, where floating gets you nowhere." And a ripple of polite, uncomfortable laughter washed through the room. My aunt patting my hand with fox sympathy, my cousin smirking into his napkin, and I felt the heat rise from my chest to my hairline, my vision blurring as I stared at the intricate pattern on my rented chiffon dress, the shame so complete it felt like a physical weight pressing me into the ornate chair. And I remembered a childhood of being the afterthought, the quiet one whose drawings were called doodles, while my sister's debate trophies were enshrined in the living room, whose desire to serve was met with, "Join the Peace Corps. Sweetie, that's for people who can't get real jobs here." And as the band struck up a lively tune and the dance floor filled, I became a ghost at the feast, invisible amidst the celebration. And later, when my sister, radiant in her lace gown, floated past with her new husband, she whispered, not unkindly but with a finality that shattered me, "Mom's just worried about you, Sophie. You need to get serious about life." And I spent the rest of the reception hiding in a marble bathroom stall, silent tears ruining my carefully applied makeup. The sounds of joy outside the door whirled away. And that very night, after helping clean up the last of the decorations as the staff gave me pitying looks, I drove my beat-up Honda Civic, not to my shared apartment in Venice Beach, but straight to the 101 North, driving through the night, the taillights of other cars streaking through my tears, heading for the only place that felt big enough to swallow my failure, Seattle, where I arrived as dawn broke over the Puget Sound, gray and damp and perfect for my mood, and I rented a closet-sized room in a boarding house in the Capitol Hill district, its walls thin enough to hear every argument and every sigh of my neighbors, and I got a job as a barista at a busy Starbucks downtown, my hands permanently smelling of burnt coffee and milk, and on my feet for 10-hour shifts, smiling through the ache as tech workers in Patagonia vests complained about their stock options, and I took a second job as an overnight proofreader for a vanity press, my eyes straining in the blue light of a computer screen in a windowless office, surviving on expired pastries from the coffee shop and a hollow, knowing loneliness that was colder than the Seattle rain. And I would walk home in the pre-dawn gloom, the Space Needle lit up in the distance, feeling smaller and more insignificant than I had even at that wedding, a speck in a vast, uncaring America. And the self-doubt was a constant companion, a voice that sounded like my mother's asking if this was it, if this was the floating life I was destined for. But somewhere, beneath the exhaustion and the hunger, a new voice, small and fierce, began to whisper back, and I started using my meager tips to buy books on American history and political theory from the used bookstore on Pike Street. And I began running, not for joy, but for discipline, along the misty paths of Green Lake, pushing my body until the emotional pain was overshadowed by physical fatigue. And I quietly, secretly, began researching a path my mother had once scoffed at, a path that led to a uniform she could never dismiss. And after a year of saving every penny, I enrolled in night classes at Seattle Central College, pursuing an associate's degree in criminal justice, studying on a cracked tablet at the back of the Starbucks during my breaks, the words swimming from fatigue. And I transferred to the University of Washington, working 3 jobs to pay my way through a bachelor's in political science, my life a relentless, silent grind of work, class, study, and the slow, deliberate building of a new identity. One transcript, one past exam, one completed mile at a time. And after graduation, I applied for and was accepted into a civilian internship program with the United States Secret Service in their Seattle field office. A foot in the door. That was more thrilling than any wedding toast. And I approached the mundane tasks of that internship with a ferocious dedication. Volunteering for extra shifts, mastering the intricate software, building a reputation for preternatural calm, and meticulous attention to detail. And I began the long, secret, and grueling process of applying to become a special agent. A path that required passing the Treasury Enforcement Agent exam, the arduous physical fitness test, the panel interviews, and the exhaustive background investigation that dug into every corner of my lonely life. And I trained in secret. My runs, now timed sprints. My apartment floor a space for push-ups and sit-ups until my muscles screamed, all while maintaining my calm exterior at the office. And when the final acceptance letter came, ordering me to report to the Secret Service Training Academy in Laurel, Maryland, I felt not elation, but a deep, settled certainty, like a ship finally finding its true north. And at the academy, the training was the most demanding experience of my life. Firearms proficiency, protective intelligence, counterfeit detection, defensive tactics, each day a test designed to weed out those without the mental fortitude or physical resilience. And I thrived not because I was the strongest, but because I had been forged in the quieter, deeper fires of familial dismissal. And the day I graduated, standing at attention in my new navy blue Secret Service uniform, the silver badge heavy over my heart, I felt the ghost of that chiffon dress finally fall away. And my first posting was to the Denver field office, where I worked on financial crimes investigations, my analytical mind honed by years of study proving invaluable. And I rose steadily, earning the respect of seasoned agents, my calm demeanor and unflappable nature marking me as a natural for protective details. And after several years of exemplary service, I was selected for the prestigious Presidential Protective Division, a posting in Washington, D.C. that placed me on the perimeter of the most powerful office in the world. And my life became one of silent vigilance, of studying faces in crowds, of planning motorcade routes, of being part of a machine dedicated to an ideal larger than any family's approval. And I bought a small, secure condo in Alexandria, a life of orderly, purposeful solitude. And I never once reached out to my family in California. My revenge was the life I led, the uniform I wore with quiet pride, the weight of the responsibility I carried, and the knowledge that I was, in every sense, protecting the America they took for granted. And then, nearly 15 years after that wedding toast, I was the agent in charge of the advanced security detail for a presidential fundraiser at the Biltmore Hotel in Santa Barbara. And as I walked the familiar, opulent hallways now with a radio earpiece coiled discreetly at my collar, and a commanding presence that cleared paths, conducting security sweeps and coordinating with local police, I felt a surreal detachment from the ghosts of my past. And during the main event, a black tie gala in that very same ballroom, I was positioned at a post near the entrance, my eyes scanning the crowd of donors and dignitaries, my posture one of alert readiness. And that's when I saw them, clustered near a pillar, my mother, Eleanor, now older, her hair a perfect silver, wearing another expensive gown, my father looking paunchy and bored, and my sister, the bride from all those years ago, now with lines around her eyes, laughing too loudly at something a man in a tuxedo said. And for a moment, time seemed to fold in on itself. And then my mother's gaze, drifting across the room, locked onto me, and her face underwent a transformation that was more satisfying than any shouted accusation. Her smile froze, then melted into confusion, her eyes darting from my face to the distinctive uniform, to the lapel pin, to the coiled earpiece and the palpable authority that radiated from me. And her champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor with a sound that made several guests jump. But no one moved faster than the United States Marine Corps band members setting up on the dais. And as staff rushed to clean the glass, the Marine Staff Sergeant in charge of the band, following protocol for a uniformed officer of a protective detail in the room, caught my eye and gave a sharp, silent nod. And on his cue, the entire Marine band, in their impeccable dress blues, snapped to attention and rendered a brief, respectful salute in my direction, before resuming their positions, a gesture of professional courtesy that was unmistakable in its meaning. And in the ringing silence that followed the shattering glass, that salute was seen by every single person at my mother's table. By my gaping sister, by my stunned father, and most importantly, by my mother, whose hand flew to her mouth, her face bleaching of all color, her eyes wide with a realization so profound and so devastating it looked like a physical illness. And she stumbled back against the pillar, her body trembling violently, as the understanding crashed over her. The daughter she had mocked for having no uniform, no purpose, was now a figure of such authority that the United States Marines saluted her first. And I held her gaze for just a second, my expression one of impassive, professional neutrality, then gave a slight, acknowledging nod to the Marine Staff Sergeant, before turning my attention back to my protective survey, my heart beating a slow, steady rhythm of absolute peace. And I didn't need to see the aftermath, the frantic whispers, the tears of shock I knew were now streaming down my mother's face. Because my revenge was complete and perfect, it was not in words, but in the silent, powerful language of respect earned through service, a language spoken in the crisp lines of my uniform and echoed in the salute of the band, proving that in America, the quietest dreams, nurtured in secret through pain and perseverance, can rise to command the respect of the nation itself. Final Yopu Medite, YouTube title. They mocked me at my sister's wedding. Years later, the Marine band saluted me first. YouTube description. Publicly humiliated by her mother at a lavish wedding for having no uniform of purpose. Sophia's journey is one of silent struggle. From a barista in Seattle to the halls of the Secret Service, follow her decade-long path of discipline and resilience. The ultimate, dignified revenge unfolds when she returns to the same hotel, now as a special agent, and the United States Marines render a salute her family will never forget. A 30,000-word emotional story of quiet triumph. Tags Secret Service story, female agent, emotional revenge, wedding humiliation, Marine band salute, uniformed service. USA story from shame, detective detail, silent strength, AI narration, long-form story, inspirational, family drama, American dream. Long tail keywords. Secret Service agent revenge story, humiliated at wedding becomes federal agent, Marine band salutes woman, emotional long-form AI story, female empowerment uniform story, silent revenge on family.